as a liberal.
I don't know. There's a lot of there's been an exponential increase in people who are racist towards white people.
Well,
yes, absolutely.
That's a great point.
Hell
but
yes.
in the aspect that the liberals want to argue is that minorities are oppressed against and they can't get anywhere in America.
Everyone's oppressed.
Remember, minorities, but by what metric?
Less than the average population demographics of America. So if you're anything but white, you're a minority in America.
But that's a very American-centric point of view. If you look at the overall
I'm sorry,
population,
America is a white country.
No, it's not.
I stand behind that.
Largely, yeah, it is.
Not anymore.
I stand by that.
What are you
By the
trying to
fact
tell me
that,
that over 50% of America is other than white
Around 50% is other than white, yeah.
right now in 2024?
And then if you look at the global population, Europeans are a very, very small minority of the global population.
I don't think
I don't care
this
about
country
European. I'm concerned
is majority
about
white.
US of A.
Yeah.
because you look at me right now, and the crazy part
There's
is
also
most
people who identify as white who are not, who skew this statistics.
most people look at me and they say I'm white, and
Especially-
it pisses me off. I'm not white. I'm Italian and I'm Hispanic. That doesn't make me white, and it
Yeah, so there's
despises me more.
There's a lot of people who are considered.
So just off the first thing, census.gov, the most prevalent ethnic group for the United States was the white alone non-Hispanic population of 57.8%. This decreased from 63.7% in 2010. I do agree with you that we are nearing closer to the 50% mark, but still, it is a majority white. The Hispanic or Latino population was the second largest racial or ethnic group, comprising 18.7% of the population. The Black or African American alone population was 12.1%.
Huh. ...
I mean, I do think, obviously there's a future where that is definitely going to be 50-50.
Maybe. I mean,
For sure.
eventually, but it still won't end racism.
And that goes into right-wing conspiracy theories like the grand replacement theory and stuff like that. But
Racism.
we're not going to get into that.
So
will
as of
never
recent,
die.
like
Never.
as of recent reports, there's been illegal like border cross, like fucking wetbacks, really. Like,
That's
all right,
crazy.
What's the timestamp?
I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry.
What's the timestamp? If he doesn't remember to edit this out, I would like to point out that he is 100% Mexican in the way that is a mixture of other ethnicities, but
in the
he is
fact that I was
Mexican.
born into fucking United States? Fuck you.
He's Mexican.
Yeah, I am
Wow.
sorry. I do apologize. No,
He's
but
from Laredo. That's basically
I mean,
Mexico.
I'm literally just going to blur it out. It's fine.
yeah, no, but
I
You
will
wrote
like
down the
the points to be
timestamp?
clocked. Yeah.
no.
So did he
but-
use a racial slur against Hispanics? Yes, but he is Hispanic. So checkmate, liberals.
Fuck off. Well, okay, thank you. No, but what I'm trying to get, there's
Can you
been
get me,
an increased.
Glenn Karen with the Johnny Walker Red.
Ooh,
Are we trying the Johnny Walker Red on the podcast? Or you're
If you
just
would-
drinking it.
If you would absolutely like to.
We can.
No. What was
These
I?
guys
You don't
don't
have
like
to.
whiskey.
What was I getting
Yeah,
at?
I don't. If you guys don't like whiskey, don't
I'll
try it.
drink some
Go
of
ahead,
it.
guys.
No, but there's been an increase in crime rate from illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
From their like
We'll
it's always like
we'll continue with that point
Yeah.
right after
You
the
can tell that
the
this
second
that
alcohol
this
review.
is shit whiskey because it has a plastic stopper thing in it.
Yeah. So this is the Costco variety of
It's just a big
Johnny
bottle.
Walker Red. It's $40. It is like what's the capacity? What's the volume of that bottle?
It looks like a liter or something.
Okay. 2
Uh,
liters?
It's not a 2 liter, no.
I
I
wish.
think so. It's probably 1.75.
okay.
Hand me that to me. Hand me that.
Gimme.
Gimme.
You guys want to try this stuff?
Nah.
You do not have to try it.
I'm not. I'm
Nah, I'm
not
fine.
drinking it.
I was very tempted at Costco because they had Johnny Walker Blue Label.
Honestly, the only Johnny Walker that I've tried and liked, I know Blue Label is actually technically or objectively a good whiskey.
Walker. Give me.
I don't know how long
Where's your
aged
cup?
Johnny Walker Blue is. I'm going to look that
But
up.
it's like a really expensive bottle.
It's like $240 at Costco. Dude, I love this iPad.
So
What is it? What app?
High
what
Rye
iPad?
on a
12 Pro.
unironically, High Rye is Johnny Walker High Rye is decent.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was an iPad. Because I see like the keyboard
I'm
attachment.
cross-threading
Is that
this
an
thing
attachment
so
or is it like
bad.
with
Yeah,
the
it's
iPad?
the Magic keyboard.
How about that? What's that thing on top? The white.
That's
Piece.
the Apple Pen.
Oh, okay, cool.
Why not just get a laptop?
It was his dildo.
So Johnny Walker Blue Label remains a mystery.
So this is
I don't
red
like
label.
that. Rumors suggest that the bottle is aged for at least 28 to 60 years.
Wow.
Red label blended Scotch whiskey, which means it is from multiple distilleries, which is why it's
The
cheaper.
land of Scotland.
It has to be from Scotland, technically, to be Scotch whiskey.
This is also
but that's
apparently Churchill's go-to Scotch.
Well, it was different back then. Just like Jack Daniels was Elvis Presley's go-to whiskey, but like now it's way different. So,
Just like Coca-Cola used to be better back in the.
You know,
dude, Coca-Cola in every country besides the United States, fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's true.
it's because they focus more on flavor than rather than sugar
They
content.
probably still have
they
cocaine
focus
in
more
it too,
on
though.
like using. Well, they have to use real cane sugar, dude. Nothing will radicalize you more than having European Fanta.
Oh my
I will say
God.
this,
Is it that
and
good?
honestly, this
It's
might remain
so fucking good.
This might remain a Walker and Brandon podcast episode. Looking at the content that is coming out of Tucker Carlson recently, we'll definitely have to look at that. I'm not sure
It's
if
like
you've been keeping
they
up
lost
on
their
that.
shit about fucking bread in a grocery store. Like
yeah,
they've
you
never
saw
been
the
to a
same thing.
Publix.
You saw the same thing.
I
yeah.
saw that.
Okay,
Uh,
Got
you
a
have to-
whole like grocery list for like a week and spent like $100
You have to elaborate.
There's
and like
so-
lost his shit. It's like, wow, we can't do that in America.
So there's a
It'll be
really good
$400.
YouTube short from a channel called Ryan Macbeth, and Ryan Macbeth was a first sergeant in the army, and before that was an anti-tank infantryman. And while he has a little bit of a corporate HR personality for me, I do
wanna
think that
see.
he is very informative and usually a very good resource for a lot of information, and looks at things objectively in a fair way as much as he thinks, or as much as he can. And cannot honestly recommend his channel enough because of the objective way that he looks at both right and left-wing news. But he did the math of like what you get paid in Russia and what you get paid in America and what the cost of the groceries would be.
Right.
And it's like the percentage of your pay in Russia, what they got at the grocery store. If you got the same kind of stuff in America, the percentage of your pay would be less in America to buy the same amount of food.
And that is the only thing you're going to hear as far as this analyzation from Tucker Carlson's. I wonder, we're not going to even say more because I have some ideas about
You
what
gotta
it might
remember,
be as well.
The dollar amount of the food may be less, but also their cost of living and the cost of labor is less there.
We're
so
reviewing
when you go to
Johnny
the
Walker
actual
Red.
amount that people are getting paid, I'm still going.
I know.
When you get to the actual amount that people are being paid, even though technically it doesn't translate like into the same dollar amount, if you don't get paid the same dollar amount as people in America, then it's still like
I'm
a certain percentage of your pay.
diving into,
going away.
yeah, if you guys want to have if you guys look forward to that sort of dissection of what's coming out of Tucker Carlson recently, please do subscribe and we'll talk about them in the future. Diving into Johnny Walker Red Label.
Only two of us are drinking because the other guys don't like it. Well, actually, you had a little bit. What do you think?
Okay, so first smell.
Light.
It's
It's
yeah,
way-
it's
it's
way
a little-
lighter.
So light.
It's
is
smokier.
nowhere near Lagavulin and
It's not-
Chaldea, Glenfiddich. It's not
Well,
even the
compared
same level.
compared to
Yeah.
the Basil Hayden, it's not as sweet at all. I think the Basil Hayden's too sweet. I think that's why I don't like
I'm
it.
still
Yeah.
smelling the fucker.
Like it's not.
It's not the black label. I think is the cheapest. I don't know what the red
I
label
will
is.
say this. For
It's
a
decently
Scotch,
smoky, but it's not a Highland
for a
like,
Scotch,
or an
it
Islay
is.
Scotch.
It just for a Scotch, it just fucking goes.
Yeah.
Smoothest ride for a Scotch I've had in a while. And
I don't know.
I'm one to really love.
What's the
I'm a
price of
huge
this bottle?
fan. That was like
Or
$40
look
as
for
well.
a 7 for a liter and
Yeah, let me go look at Costco because that is what I
1.5
bought
liter
it from.
bottle?
Johnny Walker Red.
yeah. So it's 1.75 liters. For $40,
51.
51.
Have any of you guys ever tried? Because none of you like tequila,
Cheap.
right?
I'll drink tequila. I'll drink
Have
anything.
any
dude.
of you had Milagro?
No,
Yes.
bring
You-
that
you've
shit
had-
in.
I hate it.
Really?
Look,
Milagro is the most agave is such a very particular flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Milagro has all of the wrong flavors of agave.
look, more John.
Really?
More
Yeah,
John.
it's very
Oscar.
it's a very punchy, strong
For
we got,
me-
tequila.
we got 1 or 2 episodes before I moved to Tennessee. Bring that shit in. I will try it.
Yeah. The thing about Milagro is, I agree. It was very smooth.
Say it with the accent
upon-
again.
Milagro.
Milagro.
Are you hard? But yeah. Like I mean,
Why do you
it
want me
was
to
very. It was no. It was very smooth, but it punched. It gave that punch. But
It's
my
a
older
very
brother
strong tasting
loves
tequila.
Milagro.
If you were to drink it frozen, like drink it as cold as possible.
That's what I did. And it was really good. I think the last time I had Milagro, other than the Blanco, was I had Raspasado.
That's what I did. Milagro Blanco.
When Hayes left and he moved out of the barracks, he left like a $50 bottle of tequila. I forget what it was. It was like Don Julio.
Yeah,
like one of the aged,
Don Julio Blanco.
but one of like the aged ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he left that. I drank it. It was fine.
Yeah, Don Julio Blanco is really good. Me personally, I don't like Don Julio. I think Patron is better. Patron is much better. Also very
That
underrated.
means boss or patron in Spanish.
One of my favorite tequilas are mostly the cheap ones. I really like Saza.
I learned that word from watching Narcos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with whatever that guy's name is.
Escobar.
No, I'm not talking about Pablo Escobar, the historical figure. What's the actor?
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who plays Dinjar.
I'm gonna go with $51 is what that bottle of one.
Is that still pretty cheap for a liter?
Liters.
For 1.75?
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap. This is a very cheap whiskey, and it definitely tastes like
It definitely tastes like it. You're absolutely right. So light.
But it's not bad. It's just smooth.
It's not. I wouldn't call it
has
good
the-
either.
It has the peatiness that
You
a Scotch
probably used
should
to have
have.
good ones. So.
I've had way worse cheap whiskey.
Yeah.
It has
Some of the weird bullshit you can pick up at fucking Lidl in Germany or
I think-
Nettomark in Germany.
As a final analysis, Johnny Walker Red has a lot of the sharp notes that you associate with a Scotch.
There's some peatiness in there,
taste notes.
some oakiness.
There is the peat that you expect with Scotch, but not nearly as much. I don't know how long they age this shit, but does not seem.
It doesn't taste like a very long aging
It might be
process.
because
Yeah,
it's a blend, so you can't really get that really distinction in it.
Well,
do you know how long
with
it's been aged?
With a blended whiskey, the advantage you have is that you can purchase it from any distillery to make your flavor profile. But this is
Consistency.
this is like, well, the consistency isn't a problem because what you do is you have someone who's like the master blender or whatever, or the master distiller who tastes the different barrels that you buy from different distilleries to get the right flavor profile.
If you want
your
my
consistency shouldn't be a problem.
If you want my final opinion on this, Johnny Walker Red Label, if you can get it at a price below $60 for a 1.75 milliliter bottle, I think it's worth it as a sipping whiskey at the end of a work week.
Yeah.
You want to sit down, you sip it. I don't think it's a special occasion whiskey by any means.
When I get into cheap whiskeys,
There's
what I
far
really
more
look
impressive
at is
things.
a lot of the time, does it mix well with Coke? And I don't think Scotch is great for that. So I wouldn't want to sip this by itself for very long.
Yeah, for sure.
So the reason why I like Woodford is because I can
I think-
sip it by itself and it tastes good.
I think Johnny Walker Red actually
or I
might
can also
find
mix
a
it with
spot.
Coke and it tastes good.
Because what I have over there is, I don't even think Johnny Walker Red even makes it up onto that top shelf. That's going
It
on
doesn't.
the bar.
No, Lagavulin is so much better.
For those that are not aware, I have a writing desk, and I have all of my
Even-
favorite scotches on the top shelf. I don't think this
I
Johnny
think
Walker
that was
Red Label is
Shield
going
Egg-
over.
I think the Shield Egg was only like a $40 or $50 bottle, and that's
Honestly,
still
it's
so
leaps
much
and
better.
bounds above Johnny Walker Red.
But it's an Islay Scotch.
it is an Islay. That's
and
not
that might just
entirely
be a
fair.
bias. That might be just a bias in what I like, being the
It-
more smoky or
It's
peaty
just,
stuff.
yeah,
and Islay's
that
are
is true. It's
more-
important. Hey,
they're more
folks,
smoky
the
and
best
peaty.
scotch that you like is the one you like to drink. And if you're fortunate enough to like, stuff below $50, God bless you. I wish I were you. Don't get me wrong. I would gladly drink this every day.
Glenmorangi's not bad, and I don't think that's
No,
$50
Glenmorangi's
bottle.
quite good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that if you guys are looking for a cheap-ish scotch to drink on the regular, I would gladly drink this every day of the week after work.
I would
What a
definitely do
beautiful
the
drinker.
high rye instead.
Probably. What a beautiful. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Here we go.
No, it's
well,
pretty
it's
good.
like the Jameson of Scotch, I guess.
I'd say
Yeah.
or
middle
the
range.
Jack Daniels of Scotch.
What a beautiful little time. Right. Moving swiftly on. We have the meat and potatoes of the episode. Biden gets straight up booed
Oh,
at a
boy.
State of the Union address. State of the Union address, which you guys absolutely need to hear because this is you guys just need to fucking see this. If you are still voting Democrat, if you haven't seen all the articles I've written on the website and you haven't heard on the show, seek help. You need to seek help. Here we go.
Anybody who doubts it, but it's being proposed. Folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved. The American deficit went up 4 years in a row. Because those record deficits, no president added more to the national debt in any 4 years than my predecessor. Check it out. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some...
All right, so let's just fucking stop there.
Yeah. Can you add a bit more context?
If we want, so this is a State of the Union address. Basically, he's standing in front of Congress, telling you the State of the Union is basically how the country is going. And in the Democratic tactic, he stands up there and say, everything is Republicans' fault.
He basically accused Donald Trump for all the accrued debt.
So, yeah, he is stating that the deficit, i.e., the deficit is how much money the IRS gains from taxes every year compared to the spending of the United States every year. The deficit has not been anywhere good for a very long time. Yeah. And he's saying that the deficit has never been higher in the last presidency. Notice how he's not mentioning at all what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't know the current numbers. Please, Sadio, go and look up the deficit for Trump's presidency and look up the deficit for Biden's presidency. That's just the first note. And then we have the next part, which is going to be absolutely delicious. And this is how Biden wanted to spend his State of the Union. He wanted to spend it, as the usual Democrat does, by saying that, ooh, the other side wants to prevent all this shit from happening.
You said Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what deficit am I looking up exactly?
You're looking at Biden's, what the deficit spending looks like for his 4 years. Honestly, it's ultimately not very relevant because that's really a lot going on. There's a lot of how do I say this? There's a lot going on behind the scenes of deficit spending. Keep in mind that to give Biden credit, but it's also his fault. There wasn't any massive wars that were started under Trump's presidency. But there was 2 started under Biden's, where he, let Russia invade Ukraine, and he let Israel be invaded by Hamas and their terrorist proxies. We're going to continue the audio clip here, going back a little bit.
Instead of making...
What we got? Just leave it. I can see.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it.
First thing I found here is a national... first thing that I found was national debt increased under Trump despite his promise to reduce it. Starting from...
Who is this from?
ProPublica?
ProPublica, okay.
Yeah. Saying... Where was I at? Yes, saying from 2009, Obama signs into a law of $778 billion stimulus bill to fight 2008 recession, to 2020 where it got up to 28 trillion. That was like going into the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where Trump was sponsoring effectively Pfizer to speedrun Operation Lightyear to speedrun a vaccination.
Yeah.
What do you have for Biden?
So it says here, what is the national deficit? This is from fiscal data, treasury.gov. A deficit occurs when the federal government spending exceeds its revenues. The federal government has spent $532 billion more than it has collected in fiscal year 2024, resulting in a national deficit of $532 billion. It says here, fiscal year to date since October 2023, total updated monthly. So this is obviously updated monthly. And it says compared to the national deficit of $460 billion for the same period last year. So basically, from 2023 to now, it has increased by $72 billion.
Here's the thing, folks. As tragic as it is, because our Congress apparently has all of their heads up their asses where they can't spend money that we actually have. People want to mention the national debt when it's absolutely convenient to them. I'm not even going to mention the national debt, even though I absolutely disagree with Biden. Why? Because, meh. Go ahead, China, knock on the door. Tell us you want money back. I dare you. It's not going to happen. Anyway, moving on. Let's see what they have to say.
Wealthy pay their fair share. Some Republicans.
Hang on, let's go back a little bit.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means
Classic. So here we have Biden blaming that they want the Social Security, which is, you know, the shit you get when you're old.
It's not the shit that you get when you're old. It's the shit you paid into your whole life, and the government owes
and they
you.
just want to get rid of it, apparently, because he's blaming Republicans. And you hear from the
You know how much money I've paid into
rapturous
already,
rejection.
and my short adult working life into Social Security.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
And he's blaming Republicans for wanting to sunset it. And he is going, oh, contact my office. Oh, you mean the people that literally fucking work for you?
I better get a fucking lump sum of all the shit I paid into it back if they're going to close it down.
Right. And of course, obviously, all the Republicans in the House are booing, yelling, fucking no, you jackass. Let's continue.
doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion.
Yeah, there we go.
I have more data here.
Lily just making himself look more like a Democrat every day.
This is U.S. deficit compared to revenue and spending fiscal year 2023, so it's not updated yet for 2024. The revenue was $4.44 trillion, spending at $6.13 trillion, and the deficit is $1.70 trillion. I can't find Trump's, but this is a pretty good website if you want to actually see the deficit compared to revenue and spending. And
Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fucking money.
This is .gov website, so it's obviously reliable to some. I would imagine a better degree than most.
It's one of those things where everyone wants to mention the deficit. Everyone wants to. I mean, the deficit obviously has massive implications every year. In the last 3 years, I don't remember if there was a. Was there a possible government shutdown in Trump's presidency?
There
was,
I think.
There was, I think, right? In 2023?
At least one, because it happens every year. There's the possibility. I think there was at least one.
Because our leaders that apparently we have elected into office can't get their shit together, and none of them have financial degrees, apparently. So that's the reason why we're in the predicament that we're at. It's absolutely fucking magical. And this is just what we apparently seem to deal with. Moving on. In Biden news and stuff he's just allowing to happen, brief topic here, we have Russia's advance into Avdiivka, which is a city which has been, I believe, under contest since October, I believe. So Russia conducted a series of secret military. Sorry, that's not accurate. Russia's advance. So U.S. officials estimated that Russian military had suffered more than 13,000 casualties along the Avdiivka axis in just a few weeks. On Friday, one commander in Avdiivka said that his troops had been subjected to 60 airstrikes over the previous 24 hours. This is fairly recent news, as a matter of days, that Russia has actually sort of taken over this city in Ukraine. Walker probably has more on that.
What Avdiivka is more like less of a city and more of like just a dirt pit.
Beautiful. Good news.
Or a mound of dirt, actually. I think it's an old coal mine or something like that. And
it was like an old working town.
The tactical or strategic, maybe it's more tactical, significance of it is the fact that it's a big fucking mound of dirt, which was hard to assault, so it became a very natural point of defense. And I think we find ourselves looking at Ukraine as basically Finland in the Winter War, where they're not going to be able to conduct many offensive operations at this point. And so what they're trying to do is retreat, but slowly, and by causing as many casualties as possible. They're losing the population war. They never had the population to go toe-to-toe with Russia. They've been overperforming. And now what we're seeing them do is very, very, very slowly losing land. And this is just the most recent example of that.
I've seen a lot of I have mixed feelings about the entire situation, but I've seen a lot of footage right now of the foreign volunteers forces in Ukraine right now.
I thought about doing that.
And
And then I got married.
And then you
Why?
and then you're also your
Why?
soul is belonging to the United States government.
Yeah.
Look, if you go AWOL with all your gear and you go to
what
Ukraine,
can they do?
yeah, exactly. Like Ukraine will give you citizenship for fighting for
That's
them.
a fucking massive. I do say, it is. I do see a lot of clips right now of Americans over in Ukraine right now.
I used to tell Lieutenant
fighting.
Harold because like they would say like, "Oh, go do this." Like I don't want to do that. It's like, yeah, we kind of have to. It's like I'll go fucking AWOL.
You can't stop me. Not fast enough.
It's
at
a
least.
joke, of course. I would never commit a crime or a felony.
Yeah, so that's a little brief news cap in Russian news. More concerning, though, apparently to the United States government, is that Russia's possibility to be supposedly putting nuclear devices in space. So according to MSN.com, Russia
This
conducted
makes
a
me
series.
hate President Reagan even more.
Russia
And I'll get into that later.
Russia conducted a series of secret military satellite launches around the time of its invasion of Ukraine in early 2022. American intelligence officials began delving into the mystery of what exactly the Russians were doing. Later, spy agencies discovered Russia was working on a new kind of space-based weapon that could threaten the thousands of satellites that
they
keep
say
the
new.
world connected. Yeah, they say new. It's a fucking nuke in space.
So
which we
no,
tested in
it's
the
not even just that it's a
1960s.
nuke in space. Look at during the Reagan era. Look at the Star Wars program or the SDI Strategic Defense Initiative, where part of that was we have a satellite with a nuclear warhead in it, which directs the X-rays of that nuclear warhead once it explodes into a beam, or multiple beams, which can be targeted at multiple nuclear warheads or space-based targets like satellites, and vaporize them. So this is technology that's been tested by the Americans. And we decided, shit, we don't want the Soviets to start developing this shit, just like the SLAM. I don't know if I've talked about that on the podcast before. So this is all like really fucking cool sci-fi shit. Like we had hydrogen beam particle weapons because that's basically a like an old style cathode ray tube or whatever it's called. But just like more power in space.
Yeah.
We had all these things that were being tested. And then we're like, well, it's expensive, and we don't want the Soviets to start trying to make the same shit, so we'll stop developing it. And now look at the Russians doing this, developing it. They're already developing it, so we basically just put ourselves at a disadvantage because
with the limited
Reagan-
intelligence that the United States has, they are suspecting that it's just a thing that will create an EMP. But
well,
probably likely what you're saying is if it's directed towards any sort of satellites or importance, it's going to be a little bit problematic for
Look,
the United States.
the Russians have a whole industry towards developing weapons, right? And if they're any kind of competent, they're not just going to go for half measures. Like, I forget what the type is. It the Granite missile? Like, look at some of these weapon systems just from the Cold War, where the supersonic cruise missiles have one missile data net, like, and this is like advanced for the Cold War, like really advanced, where you have one shipwreck that goes above the radar horizon to do targeting information over a data link to all the other missiles in that salvo. And then when that one gets shot down, another one takes its place. Like, if you want to, and you have a whole country with people whose whole lives are dedicated to doing things, even if it's Russia, they will come up with good weapons.
Yeah.
And the fact that we stopped developing space-based weaponry because of one, Reagan, and technically at the time we knew that the Soviets were really struggling on the money front and not actually developing anything new. So he was like, and this is something I think that people didn't like about him at the time, was that we were cutting back funding on the military. But part of that was because he knew the Soviets kind of sucked at life, or were starting to, and their system was starting to break down.
Yeah.
So he realized we didn't need to spend that much money. But there's a lot of things that were really advanced that we were working on that got canned because where's the threat?
Yeah.
And now we have an emergent threat, and we are being outpaced by like Chinese long-range air-to-air missiles or Russian space nukes.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have a counter to that. Like, we did develop a counter to that, and now it's not there because we canned that program.
According to MSN, the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, raised the possibility of Russian nuclear weapons in space with his Chinese and Indian counterparts. Any nuclear detonation, for those that don't know, any nuclear detonation in space would take out not only American satellites, but also those in Beijing and New Delhi.
Well, It depends
which is
on
interesting depending on where it's destinated.
So the issue is where the magnetic field of the Earth is going to direct the charged particles. And
There
what
is-
we ran into with
there is an
what was it
entire-
called, Project Starfish,
there is
where
an
we
en-
detonated nukes in space.
Yeah, there is an entire discussion on the physics behind nuclear detonations in space.
Because
and
that EMP will be directed
it's
into
dependent on
Earth.
like so many things like altitude of detonation and all these different things.
And
at any
could
rate,
take out-
it's problematic.
It could take out a lot of satellites.
Yeah.
It's not going to like knock out the internet. Like I've seen a lot of people on the internet talking about it, thinking like internet goes over satellites for some reason, even though almost like, unless you're one of the 10 Starlink subscribers, you're not going to lose your internet connection if some satellites get knocked out.
Well, I see that very possibly a lot of infrastructure like cellular networks would very likely go out.
Well, that comes into the EMP, which will have a much, like I said, I think it was called Project Starfish, where we detonated one over Hawaii and it knocked out all the radios.
1962, which was a test conducted.
Is it called Project Starfish? Am I right about that?
I don't have the project name, but it was launched from Johnston Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. It was exploded 250 miles into the atmosphere. The EMP destroyed electronics in Hawaii and disrupted telephone services there and took out at least half a dozen orbiting satellites out of the sky and damaged others.